Hello and welcome to my channel, and welcome to my series called The God Universe. This is chapter 6. I've got 3 topics to discuss in this video, so that's going to make the video very long. But the 3 topics individually I didn't feel like I didn't want to separate them into 3 separate chapters, so I decided I'll just put them all in this. I felt they were too small to put as single chapters, so I've placed them together in this chapter, and hence I've also put them together as one video. I suppose I could have split them into part 1 and part 2, but we'll see how this goes. I will try to give each topic. There are 3 independent topics, but they are all related to the God universe, and it's sort of it's a way to provide context for things that will come later, that I will mention in the next couple of chapters. So in this chapter, I am going to talk about planes and multiple planes, what that means. I am going to talk about fusion energy with regards to consciousness, and I'm also going to talk about electromagnetism and how consciousness have used that, electromagnetic properties, things like that. So doesn't appear to be relatable, but they are. Right, the first topic is plane. Plane, same spelling as an aeroplane, plane. So a plane is I need to get my notes, because I'm here thinking, where's my notes? Give me a minute. Right, planes. A plane is a space, one space, right? And it exists at a single frequency, a certain single frequency. And then you can have another plane that exists in the same location as the first plane, but if that is at a different sound frequency, then they can both exist in the same location. Have I just confused you? Look, I've got these stacking cups, right? I'm always using props, it helps. Right, so these are just stacking cups, measuring cups. But as you can see, right, you can fit, all these measuring cups can fit into each other, and that's really because of their size. One is smaller than the other. Let me just focus on 2 here, not confuse you too much. So this can fit into that, and you can say, oh look, they are existing, or they exist in the same location, but actually they don't. The only reason they're able to exist in the same location is because this one is smaller than this one. What I'm trying to say is, if you had two cups the same size, the exact same size, it will not fit into the same spot. They could not possibly exist in the same space. It's impossible. And why is that? Because these 2 stacking cups are of the same sound frequency. If they were the same size and one of them was a different sound frequency to the other, let's use a nominal number. Say this one was at 50 hertz, and this one was the same size, but it's at 25 hertz. Can you imagine them merge merge into this exact same spot. Can you see? They will basically exist in the same location. One of them would be invisible. Well, I was going to say one of them would be invisible to the other, but they're actually invisible to each other. It's so I'm saying you have something that exists in the same location that fits. I can't put my hand in the same location. Can you see? But if one hand was a different sound frequency to the other, then they would merge. They would merge and fit in the same location. That means that one hand is in one plane and the other hand is in a different plane. So one cup exists in one sound frequency, 50 hertz, and the other cup is in a different sound frequency, 25 hertz, and they exist in the same place, right? So that's what planes are. Planes is just things that exist at different sound frequency in the same location, and they are invisible. They are invisible from each other. They cannot. You cannot change. I mean, you cannot change. You cannot see something in another sound frequency, because you exist in one sound frequency and that other thing exists in another, even though you are exactly in the same spot. I'm standing here and there could be another Doris standing here. I'll never ever see her because that Doris will be in another sound frequency. I'll never see her ever because I exist in the same sound frequency as the earth. So I'm basically saying that the earth exists, everything in the earth, on the earth, exists in exactly the same sound frequency. The galaxy, it all exists in exactly the same sound frequency. Before I even go all the way up there, bring you back a little bit. Why am I talking about planes, right? So the thing is, who creates planes or why? And really, consciousness uses planes, as in they create multiple planes. Remember, they have, if you remember all the energies, electrical, heat, light, magnetic impact. If you remember all the energies within consciousness, one of them is sound energy. And they use that sound energy to create multiple planes for them to work in. Now, do you remember this? The centipede base unit. Remember I said each of these legs in this centipede could represent one higher self, and you've got about 3 billion higher selves out there, plus all the other super consciousnesses, right? But they're all attached to this one base unit, which is the original consciousness, consciousness A. So if each of these consciousness, independent higher selves and super consciousness are all within, they're all attached to base unit, that means that they all exist in a single location. Can you see? So each higher self is attached to base unit, and they exist in a single spot. Now, when you think about the work that they do in terms of creating worlds and stuff, which is, have I mentioned that that's what they do? To create worlds, stories and worlds. You're creating it from one spot, one location. So the way for you to extend or do a lot of the work that they do is to have multiple planes. So in one location, one higher self, one super consciousness higher self, in their location, they exist in one location attached to the base unit. Yeah, they will now create multiple planes and have different stories and things happening in each of those planes. when I say different stories happening in each of those planes. Let me give an example. So there are two things I want to talk about within those planes. Number one, when a higher self creates, say, wants to do an activity. Let's just start from basics. I am a higher self. I am a higher self consciousness energy. I'm talking about pure consciousness now, as in consciousness not attached to a physical human being. Pure consciousness, the higher self, right? I am that. I want to cook. So I create a plane to try out a new recipe. And so I get my ingredients and I'm cooking, right? Oh, I suddenly have an idea. I want to attend a film class. I'm still cooking, but I now create another plane in the same spot. It's like creating another room in the same spot, but in this room, everything in this room is now at a different frequency. And in this room, I have now got a story about, I have now created a story about a film. Think of a film, any film. What am I watching at the moment? I can't remember now. You know what I like? Black Panther. Black Panther is not, I don't. Anyway, I'm trying to say that Black Panther came to mind. I don't know why, but I'm basically trying to say that I am working through a movie script, and therefore I've got actors, I've got scene, I've got stage crew, stage hands, I've got kids in this movie. That's happening there. At the same time, so I've done a cooking class. I'm cooking a recipe. I'm working on this movie that I'm the director and the actor. And then at the same time, I think to myself, oh yes, I need to try out some experiments. Create a new room, different plane. I'm facing different directions, right? While I'm talking to you guys, but in actuality, everything is happening in the same direction, the same place, the same location. I'm just facing different direction because just to illustrate my point. So here I've got an experiment in a lab. I'm a higher self. I'm working on an experiment in a lab. I'm working in a film studio, and I'm cooking all at the same time. That's three things I'm doing. I've created 3 different planes to do all of this stuff because I'm in one location. The second thing I want to mention that everything that's created in the plane, in this space that I'm in, everything has got my energy signature. So each higher self, each super consciousnesses and higher selves, pure consciousness, when they create planes and do work in it, everything in that plane is constructed and molded of the same energy signature as that higher self. So in the cooking, right, remember now, the stage and the crew is constructed of my energy. So the pots, the pans, the food, everything is constructed of my energy. Film crew, the actors, the lake, there's a dinosaur, the kids, everything, the trees is constructed of my energy signature. Experiment. I might be using the solid aspects and maybe, testing that out, but everything else, the lab, and everybody else, all the other scientists are constructed of my energy signature. So higher selves in their location create multiple planes to do multiple activities and events in, right? Now, the other thing I want to say is, so they've created, I've only mentioned 3. They've created multiple planes. Everything within those multiple planes is their signature. Another higher self has created 6 planes. Everything in their 6 planes has got their energy signature in it. not the same. We're not mixing. I'm working, this is my space, and that's their space, okay? The other thing is, what was I gonna say before I forget? Something just slipped out of my mind. What I wanted to say is attention. So, I have 3 planes, right? I've created 3 planes: cooking, film, experiment. And my nose is a bit itchy. Oh God. Maybe it's my hair. Is it my hair that's bothering me? It probably is. Okay, so I've created 3 things: cooking, film, experiment. I am also paying attention to all those activities simultaneously. I've copied my attention to the cooking, my attention to the film, my attention to the experiment. Everything in those 3 planes are happening completely independent of each other, and they're not waiting for me to come and say, where are you? Okay, carry on, I'll be back in a minute. No, none of that. It just carries on and flows simultaneously. I know, me, the higher self, one of these things, I know what is happening in all those 3 planes at any given point. Because it's literally like I am paying attention to all the activities happening. I am improving and developing the movie. I am cooking this food. Like, it's really tricky to imagine that you are able to do so many different activities at once. But you know, I'm just wondering, my nose itching. I'm just wondering if it's that powder. So it's tricky to imagine being able to do so many different activities, not just do it, you're participating in the activity, you're the main participant of everything in the activity, and you're like carrying on the activity. And just these 3 for me, just trying to imagine keeping up with the 3. Where am I with the cooking? Where are we with the story? Where am I with the, for me, for Doris, it's very difficult because I'm having to think about where I am. Hang on, it's just my nose. I need some tissue to wipe my nose, excuse me. So it's very difficult for me to imagine performing these activities, Doris, performing these activities without having to think and try and remind myself where I was. Okay, here's where I was with the cooking. Here's where I am with the with the movie. But pure consciousness, it's like they don't follow this activity one after the other. Everything, it's as if they're paying a single attention to just one. So each activity is like they've given it a full 100% attention, which is weird. So that was one thing I wanted to explain. So now you have multiple planes, multiple attention. They do multiple attention by copying the attention. I think I mentioned that earlier. Okay, multiple planes, multiple attention. And also that they're everything within the plane in their space. I don't know if it's even worth mentioning that. Now, I mean, I don't think I'll bother mentioning the bit where, see, the whole idea of everything within their plane. The whole idea of everything within the plane is that, you know, this landed, for me, this landed when I had the dream, and I sort of, when I woke up, I was communicating with my higher self, and I said, you know, this is like a dream world, isn't it? Like where you are must be like a dream world. I had a dream about my mom, and it was me, my mom, in her house, and I was just trying to understand perspective, and I said that you must have my perspective in the dream, and that's when she said, no, in the dream, I am you, and I am your mom, and I am your mom's house, and the table, and the chair, and I was like, what? And that's how I knew, like, in their space, they create everything. It is their energy that creates everything. Dream is created in the imagination, so it's easy. It is easy to see how everything, right? You, me, my mom, the table, her house was all done with a single energy signature. That is the same. That is the same as pure consciousness. So, like your dream world is the same as consciousness, pure consciousness in their space, without the base unit, performing different tasks. So now I've talked about dream world, right? And if you remember your dreams, everybody dreams, okay? Everybody does. You may not remember it, but you do. So our dreams is like the same as the world you live in, right? You can see that dream, that one dream, as happening in one plane, right? And then the next night you have another dream. You can usually only see yourself in one dream, but imagine like you have that one, and then the next night you have another dream. That other dream might be in a completely different location. Dream number 4, sometimes you have 3 or 4 dreams in a night, in the night. Dream number 4 happening in a different location. Now, all of these, right? All of these, this is annoying me, my nose itching. All of these are I'm trying to think of a good way to explain this. Right, what I'm trying to explain now is that each plane is a world. So, for example, if you go to like security camera, if you have a security camera overlooking, I don't know, a city somewhere, you have several screens. There are several screens. If you go to the security room, either looking at a town square, security for a building or whatever, you have several screens because you've got several cameras looking at one location. So you have several screens. You can see someone going to the playground, see someone going to the toilet. You have several cameras focused on one location. Right, even so even though you're looking at different areas, it's all one location. Now, with pure consciousness, you can have those several screens, right? But those screens are all different locations, as I've said, at different frequencies. But the thing about it is, when I thought about this, it just felt like, okay, here I am watching different screens. There could be 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 screens. But the thing about it is, each of those screens is a world. It's a whole world. It's like you create a whole earth, and in that whole earth you have something happening. Then you create Earth 2, and in Earth 2 you have another storyline happening. Then you create Earth 3, and in Earth 3, the world of Earth 3, there is another whole storyline happening. President Trump never became the president, something like that. And these, what I'm basically saying is, each plane is as large as the universe. Each plane is a universe of itself. It's an independent universe, and things happening within that plane. It's not a tiny little stage. Things happening within that plane. is independent, is focused, it flows. Can you see? A whole world. So basically, pure consciousness is creating a whole world every time they're thinking up new things that they want to test out, try out, work on. Whole world each time. And they can create as many planes as they need to do whatever work they're working on. And when they discovered the use of planes, creating multiple planes, evolution happened. There was consciousness evolution. I don't know what number this was. I think this was probably number 3. The third evolution happened in the God universe. Discovering the use of planes, because this allowed the higher selves to learn more, because they can now create different versions of themselves doing different things, testing out different things, working on stories from their space, from their single space. They're creating different worlds, different earths, and having different, the thing is, I want to say parallel earths, but when I think parallel, I think things stacked next to each other. No, these are all in the same space, but each of those is a whole world happening. Each of those is an evaluation of something, of the world, or story, or whatever. And each of those they pay 100% attention to. Somehow they have multiple attention. But the earth is not one of those worlds. Where we are, because I'm conscious of 2 things I've mentioned. I've mentioned like simultaneous attention, everything is happening at the same time, and I'm conscious that I didn't mention the word time. And all I'm really saying is there is only a space dimension. There is only a distance space dimension, right? Distance. There isn't a time dimension. We're always talking about there is no time, and the reason what this really means is you have multiple worlds that I have created as one of the consciousness, super consciousness. I've created multiple worlds to do multiple things, to test out multiple things, and I'm paying them multiple attention. If I'm paying them multiple attention, then by definition, everything in those worlds are occurring simultaneously. I'm not doing one after another. So when we say things like everything is happening at the same time, no, it just means that the work that I'm doing as one of these higher self, I am paying multiple attention to the work that I am doing, and therefore the work that I've created, that I'm working on, I've got them happening simultaneously. And there is no time dimension, because time is associated with the earth. I will explain this another time. Anyway, now what I also mentioned just then is that the higher selves, the super consciousnesses, all of them, they're all attached to this. And they're all creating all these worlds, but actually the earth isn't one of those. So the earth is independent to these worlds that the higher selves have created. Because I said the higher self or super consciousness create the world, and everything within that world, is made of the energy signature of that specific higher self, of that specific consciousness. On earth is a commonplace. everything on earth isn't made of the energy signature of a single consciousness. There are multiple consciousnesses on earth. There are 7 billion people on earth, created from about 3 billion higher selves, each of them with their own independent energy signature. So this paper isn't conscious. My floor isn't conscious. The tree isn't conscious. My chair isn't conscious. This board isn't conscious. It's not like, it's not made of the energy signature that created this, the paper, the floor, and everything else. It's not the same energy signature that created me, or the dog, or the cat. It's not. I said in one of my videos that animals have different consciousnesses anyway, and really my point for this topic is to say that, not for this topic, more for this session, this particular segment, is to say that we are not all made of the same consciousness energy signature. We each have our own individual consciousness that's linked to the base unit. 3 billion of these, we are linked to one individual ones, and we're here on earth. Earth is a commonplace. It's like soft play. It's not soft play, but you take your kids to soft play, they play around with it, they meet friends, they play around, and at the end of the day, you go home. That's kind of what earth is. Your higher self and your inner being brings you here. You interact and experience life on this earth, and when you die, you go home. That is what earth is. It's a common place for the interaction, learning and sharing of different consciousnesses. So that's completely separate to the earth that these higher selves, these higher self, super consciousnesses, pure consciousnesses, is different to the ones that they create, because they create earth as well, and they create stories in those earths. It's a different place. Those earths are more like the ones that happen in your dreams. So I think that's all that I want to cover for this particular topic. Let me have just a quick check, and then I think that's all for this topic. And I'm gonna come back, and we'll be, just so that I can get my place, get my table ready for the next topic, which is fusion. Okay, the next topic I want to talk about is fusion energy. The second topic I want to talk about is fusion energy. I've got my props here ready, and I've got my notes. I will be referring to my notes a lot, because this topic is so different from the last one, I've had to sort of mentally prepare myself to close off the last one and really get myself in tune with this and remember the things I wanted to talk about. So if you remember, consciousness is made of fusion energy. It has fusion energy within itself, right? So as in, fusion energy is one of those energies that is heat, light, electrical, magnetic, impact, thought, sound, all of those. Fusion energy is one of those. And consciousness uses fusion energy, or at least fusion energy is what consciousness uses to do work. Think of it as Swiss Army knife. Like it's like multiple tools. Fusion energy is like a multi-tools. Swiss Army knife, cutter, screwer, and oh, I don't have a Swiss Army knife, but yeah. So let's have a list of some of the stuff that fusion energy does. Squeezer squeezes things out, magnifier, precision, and laser cut, fuser, welding, weaving, sewing, and stapling. I'm going to move this. I'm going to expect you to remember all of them, but as I describe some of the ways that these techniques is used, it's all the fusion energy aspect of consciousness that's doing all of this stuff, which is really weird to think about. It's really difficult for me to imagine that there is one tool that does all of this, right? So fusion energy. So here, okay, let me just get into it. So on this board, I have a nitrogen atom, right? And consciousness, pure consciousness, not me, not the one residing in this body. This is the one, all this stuff has been stripped out. Pure consciousness can remove an electron. This is a nitrogen atom, right? Proton and neutrons are in the nucleus. Electrons circulate the orbit of the nucleus. Consciousness can go and, I call it flicking out an electron. It's very difficult to do, but you can take out an electron, 1 or 2 or 3. Take out a proton from the nucleus. Take out, even if it's a neutron, take that out. So it can take out any of this. Or this is an atom. This is like a H2O. Yeah, so that's H. No, this is the blue ones are my H2, and then the white one is my water, is my oxygen molecule. So you can either go at electron level and break these bonds, take out 1 or 2 or 3 electrons, however many it needs. It can take out a whole atom, break that bond. Here, this is carbon, so I've got CH4 here. Oh, that's methane, isn't it? CH4. So you've got like you've got four hydrogen atom and 1 carbon atom. So for this whole molecule, pure consciousness can take out a bond like this and just replace it with a whole, with a whole other molecule. Can you see? So I'm saying that pure consciousness can go in at electron level and flick out an electron with fusion energy, can go in at atomic level and just pull out an atom if it wants to, for whatever work it needs to do, or can just replace whole molecules and make, because if you replace a whole molecule, you'll be making a whole other product. I don't know how many of you remember chemistry. That's what I'm trying to say. And it does it in one of 2 ways, right? One way is it has an object, the object that it's looking at, solid, liquid, gas, whatever. Think about the soup. Pick up one of those things, right? Solid, liquid, gas. And it would not magnify the object, but magnify how much of the object it can see. So this is me. This is an object. Think of your phone, right? When you can't see the little letters, you magnify it. You expand it so you can see the smallest details. That's exactly what it's doing. I told you from my list, it's a magnifier, right? Let me bring the list back up. It's a magnifier, fusion energy. So we magnify what we can see. we magnify this object to the point where we can see the electrons of an atom. We can see the protons, you can see the neutrons. Imagine being able to do that, not using a machine. Yourself, a part of you can magnify something that you can keep magnifying it until you can see the electrons, you can see the protons, you can see the nucleus of an atom. Do you know how tiny an atom is? Right? And now that they can see it, you've now got precision laser cut. The same use your hand or whatever the laser cut tool is, and you go in precisely to a particular bond. This is a rock, right? You go in precisely to a particular bond. Do you know how small this is from here? Right? You magnify visually to the point, this item, an actual rock or whatever, to the point where you can see either the electrons or the atoms, and you go in there and you're like, and then you now use another part of your tool set, and you're like, okay, I'll take this off. Okay, I want to go, I will now put, I know what I'll do. I'll put this, and now I'll put this, and I'll make this. Can you see? So before you do that bit, something, I say one of two ways. One of them is magnifying it, and you can go there and you can cut where you need to cut, right? The other way of doing it, oh, my nose is still itchy. The other way of doing it is that they take a piece of themselves, load it with super energy, like a microscopic piece of themselves, and place it inside the object. So now you have, it's like me placing take a piece of myself. Remember when consciousness take a piece of itself, that other consciousness piece has a mind of its own, and you can program it to do what you want it to do. So in this instant, it's fusion energy. So you load it up with a lot more fusion energy, like heavy undercutting and the energy, and you magnify it and stick this piece of yourself inside it. Now, what do you think this piece of yourself inside that will do? You now have a 3D image of the inside of that object. A 3D image. A 3D image of all the electrons in that object. All the atoms, yeah, all the atoms and all the electrons within the atoms, right? Like, so you're either if you want, it depends on where the consciousness wants to go in at. They might want to go in at electron level, where they're looking at all the electrons, and then they can say, yes, this is, I'll cut it here and here. And then I'll build more bonds. So if you remember, if we go back, if you remember, I said fuser, welder, stapling, weaving, sewing. So you're cutting things. I didn't look at the squeezer. You know what? That's why I have this gun. Like they squeeze. Hang on. Like that. Flicking out an electron. Just squeeze it out. It's my kid's gun. I wanted to do that. Can you see? So consciousness can squeeze out. They can squeeze out. So consciousness can squeeze out an electron or an atom or a molecule by either from the outside, where they can cut it, or they put a piece of themselves inside the object, and now they have a full 3D view of everything. It's like this kitchen is the inside of a molecule or an atom. So now that they're in here, that tiny microscopic part of consciousness has enough energy within it to break bonds, to break these bonds, to squeeze out electrons. Do you know how much energy you need to squeeze out electrons? That tiny microscopic part of consciousness can do that, can break bonds. And also, that tiny microscopic part of consciousness can build bonds as well. Build that. Let's add that to it. Why not? I don't know what this is, but my point is, when they build in bonds, right, usually they use the tiny microscopic part that's loaded with energy to do the welding and the fusing within it. Kind of, it's like rearranging. And not only are they, so I've talked about breaking the bonds. I've talked about fusing the bonds to create new ones. But they can also move atoms and electrons around. Can move atoms and electrons around. So now you have this tiny little microscopic part of consciousness inside an object. I'm holding a stone. Yes, can go into this, view it in 3D, be inside it, and then be like, okay, I want to move that electron over there. So they'll cut it there, move it there, and then build new bonds. Or move another one over there, like rearranging the furniture in your house. Only they're doing it with atoms and electrons and molecules. Okay? So now, as consciousness is able to do that using fusion energy, there's one thing I forgot. One more thing I didn't mention is that the weaving and the sewing. Again, still fusion energy. It's a bit like you have layers, right? Layers of objects. And the fusion energy, just like a sort of, I was going to say a sewing machine, but it's not a sewing machine. But it's like in and out motion, just to staple things together or bind the things together. And this is used, the reason I'm mentioning this, these techniques, is actually a lot of them, I think possibly all of them, are used in the formation of the human body. And so to now say to yourself, well, how do they do that? Well, if consciousness itself has a tool that can break bonds and rebuild atoms and molecules, what does that do? I'm getting ahead of myself, because what I'm trying to tell you is, if you're breaking bonds and moving electrons and rebuilding bonds, breaking bonds, rebuilding them, or moving them around, what you're effectively doing is you're taking a piece of an object, or two or three, you can break them down to its constituent, to the smallest constituents, and rebuild something else. Or you can change this. This is a rock. You can change this rock into this. This is an aluminium pole rod. I mean, you're not going to make an exactly aluminium rod because this is part of a ladder. And my point is, I couldn't find anything metallic. My point is, you can change metal, you can change rock to metal. This has been machined and turned into a ladder. But if you can move electrons and atoms and molecules around, you can change. This is crystal. You can change crystal to a regular rock. I looked at this and I thought, well, but they're the same thing. What's the big deal? You know, of course, the crystal comes from Earth, the rock comes from Earth. But being able to change a rock into metal, and then imagine being able to change the metal to glass. If you're moving electrons and atoms and molecules around by breaking down and rebuilding bonds, you can change one structure you can change structures from one to another. And that's what consciousness can do. Let me just check my notes just to see that I have covered what I wanted to here. So I think I've mentioned everything, but I didn't talk about my example with the sewing. Like a good example, when I said that consciousness uses layers, and you kind of sew layers in and out to bond them or staple them together, kind of like a roof sometimes, like that. A good example is actually human muscles. Human muscle are like fibers. Human muscles are fibers that have been layered one on top of the other and bonded using fusion energy. So that's one way. And the other thing, and the thing I wanted to be sure I mentioned is that these techniques that I mentioned, they are not the exhaustive list, but they are enough to give you an idea of how consciousness uses fusion energy, and is really only what relates to us as humans as well. So I wanted to talk about fusion energy being something that is a magnifier, being something that they can change, they can make macroscopic, enter an object and break bonds and build bonds and move electrons and atoms around. That's an incredible aspect of consciousness. So now, if you think about when we talk about building the human form, which I will get into later on in the series, and I say something like consciousness using fusion energy, now you'll understand. If I said consciousness built this using fusion energy, you will understand what I'm talking about. Consciousness built a lot of our cells in like growing babies in the womb. Consciousness does that directly from the DNA, because our DNA, what's our DNA? I'm going to talk about that, I know, but I'm just trying to I wanted to mention it here in this video, and then when you hear it again, you'll be like, oh, she said consciousness uses fusion energy to do DNA. This is how you can flick off an atom, you can flick off a proton, you can, I say flick off. Oh, you can remove an electron, proton, neutron, or atoms or molecules, and you can put them back together using fusion energy. So when you hear this again further down in my videos, when I say using fusion energy, you know what I'm talking about. Different ways that consciousness uses fusion energy, and this is applicable in the human body. That's what I'm mainly focused on in this series. And that's all for this topic. I am going to prepare for my next topic. So I'm going to get rid of all this stuff, and we'll come back for the last topic on this video. See you soon. Okay, so this is the third topic I'm going to discuss for this video, and the topic is electromagnetism. Yep, electromagnetism. Right, I've got my notes here. I'm going to refer to this a lot because I'm trying to get myself away from fusion energy and think about electromagnetism. So, first thing I want to say here is all natural bodies has or have a magnetic charge. By natural bodies, I mean stone, metal, and wood. They have a magnetic charge, right? And by magnetic charge, I mean the forces between electrons. Okay. See, this is a toy. It's called magnetic sticks. You use it to build stuff. So these little things, you know, you pull them apart and they stick together magnetically, right? Now, although these sticks stick together and use it to build stuff, every now and again, the sticks actually repel each other. So I'm trying to stick them in, but I can feel this repulsion force and they refuse to stick. If I put it on the other side, sticks together. I found this specific pink portion. So I bet you if I turn it the other way around, oh God, it won't stick. It sticks right on, right? And now it won't stick to the other side. So there is an attractive force and a repulsion force between these magnets, right? And you can feel it. You could take any magnet and you'd feel like they have opposite ends. That force that you feel that's how a magnetic charge feels. They're attracted and they also repulse each other. Okay? So, and I'm saying all natural bodies have the charge. All natural bodies also have a magnetic field, and the magnetic charge is contained within the magnetic field. So your metal, your stone, and your wood all have a magnetic field around them. The magnetic, for metal, the magnetic charge is mostly positive. Okay? I say this because this is in here is metal. Because you can see that it sticks to one end and I can't stick it to the other. So there must be positive and negative charges within the field to allow it to be attracted 1 minute and repulsed or repulsivity the next minute, right? So with a positive, so in here I've sort of drawn like solid metal, and this black line is the magnetic field, and in it these blue pluses and minuses represent my magnetic charge. So now we have the magnetic charge contained within the magnetic field. A magnetic field, just to say, it's stronger. The more more magnetic charge you have, the stronger it is, right? Okay, I'll come back to that in a minute. at the bottom here, I've got a copper atom, like tiny little sort of illustration of a copper atom. You could see that those things at the end are like the electrons, right? So what happens is the electrons are actually pulled out from most of them are from the last orbit of the atom, right? And they're pulled into the magnetic field because of these magnetic charge. So now you have a solid metal that has electrons in it. So a solid metal, I'm using copper just because I remember copper. So what we have, let me get a proper pen. Right, I wanted to use a red pen for this because just to show that it's these electrons now. You see? So now you have these electrons being pulled out from the orbit of the atoms. Now, atoms are very tiny, and the electrons are now populating the magnetic field. This is for metals, right? Mostly the field, the magnetic charge is mostly positive, and therefore they pull out electrons that are mostly negative into the magnetic field. Right, so, and let me have a quick look. Right. I've got this is like a copper wire, right? In a balanced state, right? If you pull out, if the magnetic charge pulls out enough electrons into the field, there is a sort of equilibrium, and you have equal amount of magnetic charge to equal amount of electrons. So when you hold it, you don't actually feel a charge. So I'm saying that there is a magnetic field around this, but I can't feel it. I can't feel any electrical charge because there's equal amount of electrons floating in the field around that. So as with any metal, I used this earlier. You feel that aluminium, I think it's aluminium anyway, same thing. It's inert because there's equal amount of magnetic charge to electrons, and so it's in a balanced state. But sometimes you will have an unbalanced state, as in a state where you now have a significant amount of electrons in the field. When is that? In a power plant. So in a power plant, this is a tiny sort of copper wire wound up. I use it for something else, for necklaces and stuff, and jewelry. But I thought it would be a good example here. So in a power plant, you have metal, I think they use copper, I don't know, wound up like this. And when you wound a metal up like that, you actually have a stronger electromagnetic field, because now you've got stronger charges. And because you've got stronger charges in the field, you now have more electrons in the magnetic field. Hope that's clear. So when you wound the metal, you now have more of the pluses, more of the magnetic charge, and the magnetic charge pulls out more electrons into the magnetic field. I'm trying to say, like, when you look at this and you think about an electron, they're tiny, 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 tiny. And so like something with about this length, just I don't know if you can see this. So small length like this, you will have thousands, hundreds of thousands of electrons within the field. So you can imagine a power plant has much bigger electrical power plant, much bigger wires, and therefore they're generating a lot more electrons out in the magnetic field. What they do in a power plant is take, oh, stuff was falling off. Let me pick it up. Can't get this to stick together now. They're repelling each other. Jesus. So what they do in a power plant, so what I said is you have a balanced state and you feel no charge. To have an unbalanced state is if you apply a positive charge to that metal, you will now pull out even more electrons into the field. Okay? You will pull out even more electrons into the field. In a power plant, I was saying earlier, they now use a magnet. So you have a copper wire, right? Or a metal wire wound round. You generate you generate a stronger magnetic charge, which now pulls out more electrons. And what they do is they use a magnet and they spin it around. They spin it around the copper wire. I don't know what configuration, but you spin it around the copper wire, and you spin around the copper wire, and you apply a positive charge and then you get electricity flowing. Now we're generating electricity. That's essentially. I mean, I'm not describing like who invented electricity. They've already invented this. I'm just, number one, giving a little bit of the mechanism that's happening in the generation of electricity, right? So what they've done is reduce the magnitude of that magnetic field. Whether they know this or not, I don't know, but that's what they've done. And they've reduced. So to get the electrons to flow out, you either apply a positive charge, right, so that the electrons follow the positive charge, or you reduce this magnetic field that's containing the electrons in it. Okay, you reduce, and they do both. They do both in electrical power plants. The spinning action, when they spin the magnets, I think sometimes they either spin the magnets or they spin the wires, or they spin the metal wire. That has the effect of reducing the magnetic field. So I am going to take a side step for a minute and explain that mechanism, which I'm pretty sure nobody knows about. Here I've got two cups here, right? One of them is a pulling, we'll call this a pulling force, pulling energy. And the other one, I'm going to talk about impact energy and magnetic energy. Just bear with me. Impact energy is force. It's more like a pushing force, so an outward force pushing. And magnetic energy is more like an attractive energy, attractive force pulling in. Now, the idea, I don't want to say it's a theory because it's something that's true. So it's not a theory that needs to be proven. It's kind of fact, but we just haven't discovered the fact yet, is that when you spin, the impact energy and magnetic energy in the same direction, when you spin them in the same direction, you neutralize the effect of both. So that's magnetic and that's impact, and you spin in the same direction. If they are facing each other, if the effect of both are facing each other like this, or backing away from each other like that, you won't have that. You won't have that. You won't have that full neutralization of the magnetic effect and the impact effect. So impact pushing, magnetic pulling. The same applies to forces. Impact force and pulling, magnetic force. Attractive force and repulsion force, right? When you spin them in the same direction with each other, they will neutralize the effect. And if you had one and then you spun one around in not directly in the same direction, but maybe at a slight angle, what you're doing, you're reducing the effect. If they're exactly opposite each other, you're actually neutralizing their effect. Can you see at a slight angle, you're kind of reducing it to you have no, till when they're facing each other, they're not doing anything, right? But so what I'm saying here is you have some reduction when they're not directly facing each other. And that is what happens in a power plant when they're spinning. See, when they're spinning the magnet on the copper wire, or spinning the copper wire next to a magnet, is that the pushing force you have, because remember the magnet itself that they're using has pushing force and repulsion force. So as they're spinning it, right, some of these you have the pushing forces with the magnetic charge are pushing. Remember the magnetic charge is both positive and negative, right? Both positive and negative. So some of the charges is interacting with the pulling force, and some of them is interacting with the pushing force, and you're reducing it. So if you're neutralizing some of these pluses and minuses, then you are also reducing the magnitude of this magnetic field. And when you reduce the magnitude of this magnetic field, the electrons can flow out. And when you apply a positive charge, you're now generating more electrons from, you now have more electrons from the wire itself. This is how power plants generate electricity. Let me stop for a minute, have a drink. Right, so earlier I took a sidestep and I explained that when you twist impact energy and magnetic energy on itself in the same unit direction, you neutralize the effect. What I had wanted to show you and failed to was the effect of that twisting, which is why it needed to be in the same direction. And I don't know if this will make it into the cut, but what I'm trying to say is if we imagine that this was impact energy and this was magnetic energy, so that these are the two different energies, right? Then when you're what we're doing is actually twisting them. Play-Doh again. Is twisting part of the Play-Doh is broken off, but I'm just trying to show that you're twisting the energies around each other, which is why they needed to be in the same direction. Do that, and the effect of both the impact energy and magnetic energy is neutralized. But the real reason that I wanted to talk about electromagnetism is actually because of stones. If you remember, I said all bodies, all natural bodies, solid bodies, have a magnetic charge and a magnetic field, which means that stones and gemstones in particular also have magnetic charge and a magnetic field. However, there are differences. I want to sort of mention sort of 5 points now. For gemstones, the magnetic, it is mostly, remember for metal, it was mostly positive, it's mostly positive magnetic charge and it pulls out negative electrons. It's the other way around for gemstones. It's mostly negative magnetic charge. Remember, there are negative and positive charge. And the electrons are positive electrons. So gemstones and stones in general have positive electrons. That's new. But I had to talk about the metal bit so you can see that there's a difference to this one. So the magnetic charge that's been pulled out from the gemstones, I've got one here. This is actually blue agate stone. Will be positive electrons. The other thing is the electrons in gemstones don't just carry a single charge. So for metals, you saw E minus, so that's a single charge. That's a single magnitude, you know, of electrons, like as in the size of that electron is E minus 1. Not E minus 1, just a 1 E minus, right? For gemstones, should I pull this out a little bit more? For gemstones, the electrons carry a higher electron size. So they can have E10 plus. So if I write this, I could write like 10 plus, E20 plus. I mean, not all in the same gemstone. I'm just saying that gemstones carry a variety. Their electrons carry a variation of electron magnitude, the size of the electron. So number one, the electrons are positive. Number two, the sizes of the electrons in gemstones are also different. They range, they're not just singular. They range from something like E10 to something as much as E1000 plus. That's the size of a single electron in a gemstone. That said, right, the sizes of these electrons, depend on the type of gemstone. So for example, diamond the E in diamond is not high at all. It's one of the lowest for gemstones. Yes, we like it. I know they're very shiny. But when it comes to the electron plus E numbers, low. Something like this is a blue agate, it's a quartz crystal. Something like this carries as much as E100 plus. E100 plus. The size of the electrons. What I'm talking about, I showed you a copper atom earlier, right? just in case, I'm talking about these electrons. The electrons on the atoms of these stones carry positive charges, and they have a higher magnitude. It's like the size, is it the size of the electrons is higher. Right? Okay, now the size of those electrons, those E10 to E20, 30 plus, like a single electron, I'm talking about a single electron in a quartz crystal, right, also depend on the geometry. So if you have this again, yeah, this is blue agate, yeah. If it was just a nice spherical shape, the E number I've got here, E20 plus, this is nominal value. I'm just trying to explain to you that those E values are affected by the geometry. Right, this is blue agate. I've got here the electron value would be E20 plus as a in the magnetic field, right? This is green agate or clear quartz. Same shape, right? Same shape, different quartz crystal. So different quartz crystals carry different E numbers. I said it depends on the type of E numbers, and diamond was one of them. So here I've got different, same shape, different type of crystal, therefore their E plus numbers vary, okay? Or clear quartz. That word there's meant to be clear quartz. I didn't really gauge my space properly of writing the word. And as you go from here to here, this is a bit more geometry. This is a bit more, not geometry, it's a bit more geometric. And so therefore, going from a spherical shape, this is my drawing of a sphere, it's very, very similar to a circle, but it's supposed to be a sphere. Right, going from a sphere to a cuboid, you can increase that E number to something like 250. You can increase it 5 times, which is kind of strange, but yes, this is the conversation I've had with my inner being, is you change the geometry of a particular quartz crystal and you have impacted that electron value of it. And if you go from here, you will see to a star, you've increased it even more. You've actually increased this 4 times. Going from here to there, you've increased that electron value. Just a single electron, you've increased it up to 4 times. Up to 4 times. Right? So here I've used green agate just to show is one single type of crystal, change the geometry, and you affect the electron value. A single electron in that quartz crystal. Here, just 2 different quartz crystals have 2 different electron values. Right? Right. Now, why am I telling you this? Let me stop for a minute. Similar to the metals, you can remove these electrons. These electrons, E50, E250, right? Remember, they are in a magnetic field. They are in a magnetic field around the gemstones. And just like metals, you can access those electrons via by either applying a negative charge, this time, remember now, a negative charge, or reducing the size of the magnetic field. So we talked about the metal ones, yeah, and how we use it to get ourselves electricity. For the case of gemstones, consciousness used it in the design of the human body. We have access. No, consciousness use these gemstones to form hormones, right? So what I'm saying is, these E numbers, the E plus 30, E plus 20, for a given gemstone is, no, I've said it the other way around. What I want to say is, consciousness gain access to those E numbers, to those electrons, by circulating an electrolyte solution. The electrolyte solution have negative ions in them, right? So the way we did it, the way humans have done it to get electricity, is we reduce the magnetic charge, spinning magnets. We reduce the magnetic field by spinning magnets and the rest of it. For these ones, consciousness is gain access to that by using an electrolyte solution, and electrolyte solutions is ones with iron in it, right? Ions in it, positive and negative ions. This would have mostly negative ions in it. And the electrolyte solution that is used is plasma. Plasma. Now, if you remember, I said that the liquid aspect of the God universe, chapter 1, liquid, solid, gas, that is also plasma. Now, that plasma is the one, has got strong attractive forces to the solid, to the liquid. That plasma has strong attractive forces to the solid and to the gas. They just uniform. They appear, they just glue together. This plasma, it's basically that plasma has been converted to this plasma that hasn't got this attractive forces and bonds. And how did they do it? Fusion energy, as I've talked about earlier. You know, you can take a piece of an object and break it down. So the original plasma in the universe, in the God universe, the original liquid that exists naturally in the God universe was converted to another non-attracting plasma. So this is more like a neutral plasma, but this plasma has a lot of negative ions in it, and this is the same plasma that is found within the human body. So plasma, this is the liquid that's found within the human body, mixed with your blood, circulating, the same plasma everywhere. Okay, this plasma has a lot of negative ions in it. So now this plasma is circulated around tiny pieces of crystals. And when the plasma is circulated around tiny pieces of crystals, the E numbers now goes into solution, reacts with those ions, and forms hormones. So yes, what I'm saying is, the body forms hormones by circulating plasma around tiny pieces of crystals that has E plus numbers in a variation of magnitude. So this E plus numbers just check the time quickly. So this E plus numbers, E20 plus or 50 or E1000 plus is circulated, not the E's is not circulated, plasma is circulated around the magnetic field of quartz crystal in the human body, and that reaction formulates hormones. I talk about like how the body forms hormones, not so much how the body, this is the mechanism for how the body forms hormones. It's the reaction of the electrons from quartz crystal, tiny crystal particles in the body is the reaction of those with plasma in the body that creates, generates, formulates hormones. And there are tons of hormones in the body. I talk about it in that chapter. And that's because the hormones are also used to make even further hormones, because the hormones are also electrolyte solution, right? So the hormones are also electrolyte solution. When it's now recirculated back with crystal, it brings out more E numbers, more electrons react with something that's already a hormone and makes another hormone. I talk about that first order hormones, second order hormones, third order hormones in that chapter, consciousness integration with the brain. So here I'm just explaining to you electromagnetism of crystals and how consciousness have designed the body so that the body can circulate plasma around around crystals to formulate hormones. And they do that by having the E numbers. I say E numbers just kind of sounds like some kind of food coloring, food additive. No, this is electron values. This is the value of the electron size, or the size of the electrons in that electromagnetic field. The body uses that to formulate hormones. And I think that's all for my for this topic on electromagnetism. I'll just check my notes quickly. Oh, sorry, I did forget something. So consciousness uses plasma and electrolyte solution to get these electrons out from the field, from the electromagnetic field of the crystals, right? Yes, I just realized I didn't actually say that must mean that the body has crystals. I guess yes, it does. Where are they? Find out in that other chapter. What I'm trying, the second method used by consciousness is by sending electrical impulses. And I discuss that when I talk about my daughter's disabilities. Hi, I just wanted to jump back on quickly. I realized when I made the video, my video on electromagnetism, that I forgot to mention that quartz crystals are the only stones, the only gemstones to have positive electrons. So I described all of these electrons, but I forgot to say only quartz crystals. They're the only ones. So all the other gemstones, they have negative electrons, as with all, you know, all atoms have negative electrons circulating. All atoms have negative electrons on an orbit around the nucleus. And in the standard atom, you have protons and neutrons, right? But quartz crystals have in the nucleus, quartz crystals have protons, neutrons, and positive electrons. Proton, neutrons, and positive electrons. And it is these positive electrons that are dispersed into the magnetic field. Hang on, let me see, is it here? Yeah, it's this one. So actually, for quartz crystal, they have E++, they have protons, and they have neutrons in the nucleus of the atoms. And this is a deliberate design. It's a deliberate design by one of the super consciousnesses, electromagnetic combo. So electromagnetic combo formed all the quartz crystals, and he formed them with positive electrons in the nucleus of each atom. And they can do that because remember I talked about, you know, fusion energy, breaking atoms, putting things in place. So you know how that happens. But this job is a specific one from electromagnetic combo. This was his special skills. This is his special skill, electromagnetic combo. Right, so now we can go back to the video. What I should say is, so now we can continue with the video. Anyway, that's all for this topic and also all for this video. Oh, it's a long one. And also all for this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you understood the concept that I've described today. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.